Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2022. So let's start this first podcast of the year off with Talking Things NBA. We have the Productive Conversations basketball crew with us today, representing the best minds in the internet, better than anyone on ESPN, Bleacher Report, you name it. It's here, the Productive Conversations crew. So we first have Alex Ranniello with us. What's going on, Alex?
My man, glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. And then we have Fresh Faces, New Ideas host David Bach. What's up, Bach?
Hey guys, it's good to be talking hoops. I was actually talking with one of my coworkers, and I forgot how much fun this stuff is.
Hell yes. We're back at it. You know, I'm here in my new place. I'm ready to, get back in this game, and let's kick off this new season right now. So yes, what brings us here today first is the NBA. And then after the last time we had a podcast about a month and change, a little more than a month ago, the entire league, whether you are a player, a coach, an official, an executive, you're working in the stands, it seems everybody, definitely all 30 teams have been affected by the COVID bug, whether the Omicron variant, the Delta variant,
I don't think the Jazz have used their hardship exception yet. I was actually reading it. I think Golden State used it once, and I don't think Utah's used it at all.
Really? I thought I just saw today that someone went into protocol, but regardless, the NBA has been stricken with COVID. We've had almost every major all-star you could think of has been stricken with the disease, with the virus. Luckily, people have gone back and, they've changed protocols where you only have to wait as much as 5 days if you're asymptomatic, I believe. But anyways, the NBA has been extremely different this past month. And now we're still in this phase of people still going down as we're waiting for the surge to come to an end. But guys, what do you think about how the NBA just turned upside down with the COVID issues and stuff like that? And do we see this overtaking the rest of the season? Are we going to have more integrity questions when you have people like Mario Chalmers making a comeback and Isaiah Thomas signing 10-day contracts? Or do you think this is just another phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's just something to get through until more people are vaxxed or we see surges going down? What do you guys think of how COVID has stricken this NBA season so far?
Well, it's going to affect the next bargaining agreement. I think that's coming up in like 2 years. So my guess is there's two things here. There's the immediate impact and the potential long-term impact. The immediate impact is, I imagine after this season, they're going to extend the hardship and the ability for teams to the two-way contracts that they can have, just to give teams a little bit more leeway, because depth is clearly going to be an issue now for, teams making sure that they don't cancel games in the future so that you're always able to draw players up. Things like that. That would make sense for the league to do, to like expand the ability for guys to call up guys from the G League and stuff. I imagine it will lead to the expansion of the G League. Give every team like their own little farming franchise to work with.
Like baseball.
And then I think, like baseball. And then I think the ultimate, like really scary, like super bad breaking case of emergency is possibly worrying about relocating the Raptors permanently out of Toronto.
Really? So completely taking that aspect out.
Like this is like the ultimate worst case if we end up with like something that's as virulent as Omicron but deadly. Like if it's something that especially if it's going to keep causing stoppages, just having a team that's in another country may be more difficult of a thing that can happen, especially if you want to kind of like consider it as a way to do like lead into an expansion, like have a Seattle team and then put a team in Tampa or something like that. You could maybe frame it that way. But that's like, I don't think that's ultimately something that's ever going to happen. But I think at some point, should travel end up being more of an issue, especially like it kind of was around Thanksgiving, where teams were where people were delaying travel because they were afraid of how this pandemic would spread. That is something they might have to consider.
Absolutely. with the Toronto Blue Jays in Major League Baseball, they had to, temporarily relocate to Buffalo, and they played big majority of their home games over there. And yeah, it would make sense if the Raptors followed suit.
And I
And
imagine that's why a big reason why the NHL missed a lot of games when the NBA didn't. Like, didn't the NHL
yeah,
suspend their season?
yeah, they're currently on a break right now. Yeah. But they have over 6 franchises. They're a good quarter of all franchises in NHL up in Canada. We see how that's affected them. And yeah, it's just another footnote in this time period. And hasn't it been interesting seeing the players that they have been signing 10-day contracts, whether you're, like I said, a Mario Chalmers or Lance Stevenson or Isaiah Thomas, all people try to make their strides at comeback. Do you feel that any of these replacement players have a chance to, maybe revitalize their career, or G League player showing his true skills out there? Or do you think this will just be an interesting time to remember when they had all these replacement players?
I think it'll be a little bit of both. I think they may have a resurgence in the temporal situation, the circumstance, maybe over the next 18 months or so, depending on how the COVID protocols continue to linger through the next year and a half or so, and if beyond, depending on what the league chooses to do. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be more circumstantial. Injuries are a part of the game, regardless of COVID, and guys that as the G League continues to expand and grow and get a little more national notoriety, there are always going to be players at the top of the pecking order that are going to be there for the taking for some of these rosters to fill out. So it's going to be compounded by COVID. It'll probably be around for the next at least 18 months where these players are going to be brought up on minimal short contracts. But in addition to that too, injuries are just part of the game. And I think that some of these players may, case by case, will have better situations ahead of them, depending on where their career is at too. But also, I mean, we'll see down the road how this affects the international game with migration of players, and how it's going to affect maybe the college, the drafting process. Something we don't really ever talk about is, the 2 rounds of the NBA draft, but that may expand in the short-term future if we see a lot of this recurring over the next 18 months and longer.
Well, it's also going to draw the scouting reports. It's going to force teams to put more into scouting. So there's 2 things. This Grantland actually, or the Ringer just wrote an article about this today, like covering the impacts of some of these guys. So far the impact of them generally has been kind of minimal for a plethora of reasons. Some of it being they don't really have any time to show up in and practice and stuff. And It depends on the impact. Like if you have 1 replacement guy and 4 starters, you're probably fine. But if you're running, like apparently the Hawks in one game had 1 starter and 4 replaced guys, like that's not a good environment either for it. So there are going to be a couple guys who've stuck around. The guy up in Denver stuck around. Greg Monroe is apparently doing pretty well in Minnesota, which I didn't even realize where he was. Like there's just been so many of these guys. And I've been watching Minnesota. Like I'm a huge Anthony Edwards fan. That kid is going to be really good. And I think he should be on way more national interviews because he's fantastic. But it varies because the drop off between like the average NBA starter and a 13th bench guy is it's like very obvious, like over a long haul. So it's going to depend on the situation the guy is in. I think that's kind of why veterans are getting like a little bit more of a look through. And it also depends on how close you are. Like part of the reason Dallas got Isaiah Thomas was he was in Seattle. Like he was local to that area anyway. So it was easier for them to sign them. So there's a lot of other factors. I think the ultimate thing is they're going to expand the hardship exemption. They may give the rosters, maybe they'll let them carry 18 players, but a couple of them will be like official hard stuff. I think it will push for an expansion of the G League. Every team is going to have more scouting, more because it's going to be more important to find those like that undercover guy who can come in and play, like 15 games. The next Brandon Jennings, or not Brandon Jennings. There was a Spurs guy a couple years ago who was like Brandon Paul. There's like 7 people on the planet who know that name. Who like that. Like you got to be able to find those guys, maybe scouting the pro-am leagues or whatever these other leagues are, to be able to scout for a guy who can come up, a little bit. It's just going to expand scouting. But look, like the drop off between like the NBA's like a Durant to like one of these guys off the street is massive.
Like David.
So that's what it's going to come down to is who's getting replaced and like
Right.
and like who you're replacing them with. Like the drop off between KD and Joe Johnson is probably much less than the drop off between KD and pick random person out of the G League.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of it is and it's also like, do you know the system? Do you know how much practice time do you have? Have you played with any of these guys? They're like if you're getting called up to Golden State, that's a very different program than if you get called up into like Atlanta or Dallas, where there's like a heliocentric player where it's kind of just stand in the corner and shoot threes and then hustle your ass on defense, versus Golden State, which is an entire buy-in, which where you need to be cerebral enough to understand what's going on. Or if you get called into Utah, which is a very motion heavy offense. So that's going to impact a lot of it. So it'll be good for other guys to show their skills, but a lot of it is really just like circumstantial for most of it. Yeah,
circumstantial is the key word there. I think a lot of the guys that have been kind of journeymen in the NBA, you can kind of plug them in to certain systems, and they can adapt and do fine on a short contract. But again, it's going to depend on if you're talking about two guys replacing for 10 days or so versus, filling out a starting roster like the Atlanta Hawks, which is just terrible worst case scenario.
Yep. And also, Bach, just to confirm, the collective bargaining agreement ends after the 2023-24 season with an opt-out after the 6th season. So
they're going to
start very soon. Mm-hmm.
They're going to start negotiating it this year.
Yeah, so I think you'll definitely see who makes the most out of their resources. And going on from there, let's see how this pans out as we turn the page into 2022. So first team to talk about, and a team that has been extremely negatively affected by COVID-19, where its star in Kevin Durant has been playing literally 48 minutes a night. But as we're recording this, the day before this episode is released, Kyrie Irving returns as a part-time player for the Brooklyn Nets, as we are recording this very minute, as the Pacers are beating the Nets 49-42.
And while we talk about pull-up players, Lance had 20 points in the first quarter.
I see that right here. Man, he really wants to 22 right now in just 9 minutes. Shit. Anyway,
I mean, look, the person who won for this whole like this Omicron surge is fucking Kyrie Irving.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way to look at it and say like Kyrie Irving didn't win. He gets to play whatever he wants for like the 10 minutes or the 40 minutes. He plays like 3 games a week or 7 games a month. I mean, it'll be a problem ultimately because they're going to be in the playoffs. And the new mayor of DC is not changing that. The guy's kind of an asshole. Kyrie's not going to come back for that. So
you mean mayor of New York City?
They end up Eric Adams.
Ozio 2.0.
Huh? No.
Ozio.
He's such a dick. He's like, low skill people. They're not as good as people who work in an office. That was like almost a word for word quote from like yesterday.
That's the way to win hearts of hard, tough nosed New York City people.
He's a huge jack. Anyway, look, Kyrie lucked out. The other guys who kind of lucked out for this was I guess James Harden. Like, I mean, he's kind of worked himself back into shape. So the fact that Kyrie was missing for a while certainly made people not like him. But there's other guys like Patty Mills is still really good. Like, I thought Cam Thompson would play a little bit more. But look, KD's more or less fine. They're not going to win. I don't think they're going to win the title without Kyrie. And I don't know how they're going to get Kyrie back unless KD like holds him down at Jackson. So I guess maybe if he starts playing with them for a while, he'll be like, hey, I remember basketball. I really like this. This was fun. That was why I came here. And then he'll get back to that.
Yeah, we'll see if his training in local gyms will get him truly NBA ready, as he's now at the moment he's 8-2-2 in the game again in the middle of the second quarter. What do you think about Kyrie in general of this situation? Alex, you've been vocal about your disapproval of him, and now that he, like Bach said, he's getting to play and not get away with it, but he's luck's on his side at the moment. What do you think of Kyrie's second chance or third chance or 15th chance at this?
Yeah, lost count at this point. No, I mean, Bach kind of alluded to it. He's been kind of an opportunist throughout this process. He's kind of, sat back and surveyed things while they were playing out at the beginning of the new season amid the pandemic. So he's kind of just been taking it month by month and, deliberating with the team about what his options are in terms of playing. At a certain point, he's going to have to face the music, because they are going to be in the playoffs and they're going to need him at home. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. Only time will tell, but it's not looking good for him. My concerns from day one with Kyrie is that this was not necessarily just about the vaccine. I thought he was just being a little disingenuous, but day after day, he's kind of changed. I guess society as a whole has kind of changed my mind a little bit about his perspective on things. But even with all that said, I think that a lot of stuff has yet to transpire with the remainder of the season. So I hate to give you a non-answer, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's we'll have to see the next few months.
Fair enough.
He's the ultimate load management player. Like, you can sit KD in games when Kyrie's going to play, but you can play Kyrie 48 minutes a game for because he's playing if they're unless they're on a road trip, he's playing like once or twice a week. So you can just play him like an infinite amount of minutes. And you can just use him to rest James Harden because he's 60 pounds. He's not 60. He's not Zion. He's like 20 pounds overweight. Or maybe KD needs a breather for a day. You could just play Kyrie the whole time. It's like, I'm sure every coach would love to have a player that they could just plug in and be effective, once a week, because it's essentially playing 2K. You have a character who needs no downtime and can basically just do. I mean, depending on what type of shape he's in. I mean, he's one of those guys who could probably go off randomly. So it's like that. It's a very weird thing. And I think Steve Nash is probably going to do a good job of monitoring the time stuff, because they've done a relatively good job with his coaching staff. But it's very frustrating that he lucked into this ass backwards. I think this is the best outcome he could have had. The best outcome for Kyrie at this point is them winning games only when Kyrie plays, especially in the playoffs. And then him getting there, and then they're I don't even know if he's in the playoffs and they win with him showing up half the time. I feel like that hurts his argument. But if they lose without him, that also hurts his argument, because the actual argument he's making, he's still wrong on. But if they win without him, well, then they don't have to deal with him as a headache. And maybe they want to move him to somewhere else where he's going to be less of a headache. So I don't know how he wins this, other than he gets to play a little bit during the time. And I assume now, if they're letting him back into this team, they can't take away the entirety of his contract. Whatever they were taking away, I guess, was home games. I don't remember the details on his contract, because we haven't talked about Kyrie since the start of the season. So if he's playing home games, I wonder how what they're doing for the pay structure. I don't remember if they were still paying him for the away games anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head either. But you mentioned about the player moving with Kyrie Irving, and a team that has been the next team I want to talk about, and a team that's been discussing a couple of player movements And they also happen to share the same division as the Nets. The Sixers right now, though they're in the fifth, they're at this moment in the fifth spot in the East. There's apparently a lot of internal issues next to COVID. Obviously, the Ben Simmons saga continues. I read that now he has as much as $10 million in fines for not playing. Wow. Then you have apparently rifts with Tobias Harris rumors, and they might want to move him, and all other messy things going on there, yet they are still winning games. What do you think about the rumors coming out of Philly? I even read as early as 2 days ago that the Kings might change their stance and try to acquire Ben Simmons. The trade deadline is about 5 weeks away. Do we think the Sixers are going to be very busy in that time?
Well, they should be. I mean, look, De'Aaron Fox is probably the best player they're going to get for Ben Simmons.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a straight up one-on-one for that?
No, you have to throw. I think it'd probably be like Fox and Buddy Hield, and probably Marvin Bagley, for like Simmons and like a pick or something. I don't really know who's still in Philly. I haven't really paid attention to them much this year. I do know Tobias Harris is not good, and he's certainly not worth $180 million over whatever he's paid. Like the best case scenario for Tobias Harris is they trade him straight up for CJ McCollum. That's the best case for them. But like look, I said at the beginning of the season, Sacramento was probably going to trade for Ben Simmons. I thought the Raptors might as well, but then Scotty Barnes is really good and they don't need him. The dark horse still remains San Antonio. If we, as long as we keep DeJounte Murray, I was thinking about this yesterday before. If we could figure out how to get Ben Simmons and Miles Turner in San Antonio without giving up DeJounte Murray and like Devin Vassell and Jakob and Primo, I'm happy with that rebuild. But yeah, it makes sense for Sacramento to do this. I think Sacramento is a good place for him. Tyrese Halliburton is really good with the ball in his hands. The only other landing place for if the Kings make a trade is for them to send De'Aaron Fox to the Knicks. Which if I'm a Knicks fan, I'm like, I'll take fucking De'Aaron Fox.
Obviously, we really need a point guard after the complete mess up in acquiring Kemba Walker, which we'll definitely discuss later on. But yeah, you think if I was Ben Simmons, I would try to make this trade now. As I said, we're in 7 figures in fines, and wherever your various reasons, which we've obviously talked about, whether we agree with them or not, or believe in them or not, you'd think that to end this pain in the ass time for the Sixers, they would just finally make this deal once and for all. Again, while they can still compete at the 5th position in the East. What do you think about the Sixers? Again, also a Ben Simmons critic next to the Kyrie Irving and Alex, but as this guy still giving his money away, and the other rifts apparently going on with the Sixers. What do you think about what's going on in Philly?
Yeah, I mean, he's talk about someone who's winning from the public as well as Ben Simmons. No, I mean he's in the same situation as Kyrie. They're both just acting like children. They're especially Ben. He's holding out and doesn't want to take accountability for not showing up, for the team and whatnot. I kind of agree with Bach that there's only really 1 or 2 options left on the table for places that the Sixers could make moves, that Daryl Morey could make moves. I still wouldn't rule out Brooklyn. I know it's a long shot, but with the Kyrie situation continuing to unfold, we don't know where that's going to go just yet. I think the Kings are still probably the most opportune situation for both parties. But yeah, I mean, going back to the team, I mean, Embiid's just been on an MVP run. I feel so bad for him because he's got all this weight on his shoulders. But he's been on, 26, 10 and 4. I like having Drummond as his backup, taking some time off him on the court, but they really they got to try to make a move before the deadline. And I really like Tyrese Maxey. I think he's one of their blue chip prospects for the future. I think he's going to make a lot of noise and pick up a lot of the slack with that team moving forward. But we'll see with Ben. I mean, it just drives me crazy because it just like Kyrie, they've enabled this guy since he was at LSU. They'd allowed him to do everything he wanted all the time when he wanted it, and no one's held him accountable. And I hate to see the organization cave just for the simple fact that these players have everything they want and then they keep getting away with stuff. So we'll see how it plays out.
Well, that's the difference between Philly and Brooklyn. Like Brooklyn caved.
They did.
Yeah, right.
Philly is not caved. I don't think they're going to bring. I don't believe that's just because it's a Philly thing. I think Ben just isn't going to play, and Philly's like, fuck it, we don't care. I mean, it certainly is hurting their trade value. I mean, they're not getting Dame. Like Dame is. I don't think he's going to ask out. My guess is as soon as they trade Ben Simmons, he'll ask out after that season. I don't think Dame plays more than one more year in Portland. But like they're not getting Bradley Beal. I don't know. Like, look, the thing with Simmons is Sacramento, like it's the reason you want to send him to it, like a kind of smaller market team, is because the more scrutiny you put on him, the more he kind of wilts. Like, him in Oklahoma City would have been really good for him. Him in San Antonio would have been good for him because there would be somebody to hold him accountable. I think if you're Sacramento, you do have to weigh the issues of potentially having somebody to hold him accountable. Because I don't think there's anyone there who's like really going to hold Ben Simmons accountable. Like who is the fucking the Walton guy that's still their coach? Who's their coach? Is it still Walton? I thought they fired. I don't remember if they fired him.
For the Kings, they fired Luke Walton.
Wasn't it Dave Yeager?
Is it Dave Yeager again? I don't know.
I can't remember.
I don't look. That franchise is such a joke. I look of the past like draft mistakes in the last like 6 years. I mean, Bagley over Luka is like a decade transforming failure.
Yeah, Luka would have revitalized that franchise, and yes, Luke Walton was fired at the beginning of the year, and it's Alvin Gentry who is the current coach of the Sacramento Kings. But
I feel bad for him, man. I really like Alvin Gentry. I believe in him.
Maybe he is the one. Now, let's talk about positive players and players we are excited to make a comeback. What?
Schottenberg and COVID protocols. I'll talk about him later. I'm definitely bringing him
up. Before we get into that, it was reported that as early as this Sunday, we might see the return of Klay Thompson after a 2-year hiatus due to injury, with the Warriors dominating the Western Conference despite the Suns being right behind them and the Jazz. The Warriors are back. Simple as that. And hopefully a returning Klay Thompson can only add on to their value. Are we expecting Klay Thompson to be the same all-star caliber player? Well, I'll leave that open to interpretation. He is coming back from an Achilles injury that is very vital in the NBA. And not only one, but two. Yes, Kevin Durant came back from Achilles injury, but not from both of them. But like I said, I'll throw it to the floor.
It wasn't two Achilles. It was an Achilles and an ACL.
Oh,
it was a knee injury, the second one.
Exactly. Sorry. You're right on there. Yes. An Achilles and an ACL injury. But like I said, do we think Klay Thompson will be Klay Thompson when he returns and he's going to make a deep impact on the Warriors? I'll throw it to the floor. What do you guys think?
Yes and no. He'll make an impact. Is he going to be the same Klay Thompson? I don't think so. Look, first off, if it's just an Achilles injury or an ACL injury, takes about a year in general to come back fully. And then on top, I don't think we've ever seen anybody have these type of injuries compounding before. Mm-hmm. Granted, a lot of what like Klay running, like if he can just run around screens and shoot the ball, that skill's probably always going to be there. The defense is I can't imagine it's going to stay the same. But the beauty of it is how deep and good this Warriors team is. Klay can basically play about as many games as Kyrie does. Like they don't need to run Klay back and have him play 45 minutes a game. Klay can play, once or twice. He doesn't do back-to-backs. He does, 15-minute spurts or here and there to just, get him back into game shape and basically just ramp him up in practice. Because it's not like in the West, it's them and the Suns. Like nobody else is coming out of the West unless some freak thing happens.
Miracle
with
from Utah.
I don't know. They have a
That
lot of
won't happen.
I don't think Utah is going to be able to do it. They don't have a wing defender.
They need a wing defender. Yeah.
That's usually a problem. But like they have the luxury because they've been there. Like the Suns made the finals last year, but they're still kind of new to this. Like the Warriors, they know. Like they've been there. They've done it. They've done it with KD. They've done it without KD.
Yeah.
They can use the regular season to kind of ramp him back in.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. I think that he's not going to. Excuse me. God bless. They're gonna work him in, slowly transitioning in. But he's familiar with the system. He's gonna be fine. He's not gonna ruin the continuity or the chemistry with the young guys or Wiggins or anybody. But I think your approach, Bach, that you're talking about, working him into getting more of the reps in practice is just going to be part of the routine maintenance for his body, because being away from the game for 2.5 years is a lot. And guys they never take that much time off unless you're KD or Paul George, and Paul George had a broken leg, not an ACL. So with that said, it's like, yeah, he's going to be rusty, but they don't need him to play 45 minutes a night, which is great. I would just get him the reps, just kind of entering and exiting each quarter, maybe for like 4 or 5 minute spurts, get him 20 minutes a night, and let him come out early when they're winning, running away against bad teams. So I think that's the plan. And like you said, there's not really much competition at the very top for the remainder of the season. So Steve Kerr can kind of experiment with the timing and the structure of the in and out of bounds with the roster the remainder of the season, getting him his reps. So because even with Phoenix, like you said, they are new to this. I just don't know how they're going to handle DeAndre Ayton, because I don't quite believe in him as that second or third guy post Chris Paul moving forward. So I still think that they're a little vulnerable, and Golden State is completely sound. Rinse and repeat, they're a very sound team. So I think they'll be fine. And
they have more reinforcements. But the other thing is too, like, we can compare this kind of to the way that they bubble wrap Zion that one time when I think his freshman year, when they were basically like cycling him like hard minute limits. The difference with that is Zion needs the ball a lot more. Like you can play Clay for like 4 or 5 minutes a quarter, or like 20 minutes a night, and he could go for 30. He can go for 30 in 2 minutes. It's a totally different type of style play. Like he's not going to be pounding in the post. He's like, if there's a style of play where a player can take these type of injuries and come back, it's Clay's style play. The real issue is going to drop off defensively, except now they're kind of a little better to take that. They can throw Wiggins, they can throw Otto Porter, they can throw a Kuminga, they can throw, they actually have like a back line in Wiseman when he comes back. If Clay is not there, they can, play Jordan Poole more. They can throw Moses Moody at it. They're deeper in a way.
A lot longer.
Right. Where it's not as bad for, like, Clay doesn't have to be the perimeter stopper supreme. Like they have the ability to do this.
Yeah. It's going to be more about conditioning with him. That's all.
Yeah. The real question is how well can he move? Like how much of a step has he lost defensively? Because let's be real. That based on just shooting talent, like if Clay could only play on one side of the floor and you subbed him out defensively, the man could play till he's like probably 50. Like him and KD and Steph and probably Dirk, like guys who could just shoot it, like pure shooters, they could just play forever. So the other thing is in like if he comes back more or less, he's probably extended his career a little bit. Like the part of the reason Steph is so good could be attributed to the fact that he like lost a season and a half from basically like the broken hand and how bad they were. So, I mean, this might be a blessing in disguise for him that he, maybe he saved some time wear and tear, but that would basically be, how much does that affect versus how much he's lost.
Yeah, I think if you factor in all the continuous playoffs and finals appearances, it probably adds up to a whole nother season that he's had on those legs.
And that's why he got hurt in the first place.
Exactly.
Because they played essentially like an extra season. Because LeBron made like 10 extra finals. He played like an extra 2 seasons or something from that. So I think the real issue with Klay is, and this is something they might like have to really worry about, is if he gets hurt again.
Right.
At that point, his contract starts to become a problem. Like you can't trade him if it may just be like kind of like Amari, where there's nothing you can do about it because he's just going to be an injury prone guy at that point. But look, a lot of it's more speculation. We don't know because there's no blueprint for anything like this.
Just got to keep collecting. And as we mentioned before, the other 2 teams were tying this into with the two teams behind the Warriors and the Suns, only half a game, and then the Jazz at 2.5 games. With this team adding Klay, Bach, you believe that the Jazz are not going to be able to hold this kind of dominance. And would you say the same thing too, Alex? Do you think the Jazz, you also agreed with him? The Jazz might be nothing, and then the Suns, even though, as you said, newer to these games, the players don't have as much playoff experience and stuff. Do you think basically what we're seeing now in those top 3 teams, do you think by the time the spring comes around, are these 3 teams still in the same position?
I think relatively more or less. I mean, one team or the other could slide down a couple slots. I mean, Memphis,
Golden State might. Golden might just
they're
a little older. They're more likely to rest their guys.
Yeah, and Memphis might move up a slot. They might move down, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the big hitters have been plagued with injury, or guys haven't been ready. So like the Clippers and Lakers, for example, they're down towards the bottom, and they'll be probably playing extra games in the play-in anyway. So, yeah, I don't think they have too much to worry about. The one fatal flaw with Utah, I mean, like on paper, they're top to bottom, like the most talent loaded, like best team, but their Achilles heel is they don't have a wing defender, and that's always going to be their issue until they resolve that. So I can't vault them ahead of either Phoenix or the Warriors to move ahead. I think really it's a 2-horse team teams in the West.
Okay.
Well, it's more than that. So they're deep. Their issues run a little deeper than the fact that they don't have a wing stop. They don't have a stopper, period. It's Royce O'Neal. So they're not going to stick Royce O'Neal on like one of those. So to be fair to them, the guys who normally dominate the playoffs, the LeBrons, the Kawhis, the Paul Georges, those big wings are essentially gone. There's no whoever comes out and like the biggest threat to them, basically big wise, is Jokic, and I mean he really might be MVP anyway. Like it's basically him and 4 bums off the street. So like they have if they have a shot at getting to the finals, it's this year. They can pull a Raptors where teams are hurt and they can kind of like sneak in. But their defense, like even so, we know a couple of things. They don't have a wing. They don't have a wing guy, but that's less of an issue this year because there's no like true wing unless they end up playing like Giannis or KD. Then that's a problem. But the other thing we know is having Rudy Gobert as like your be all end all for your defense is not the answer against Golden State. They've lost them twice now, I think. And then they lost the Clippers. Yeah. So their answer has been Rudy Gay, who I like. I like Rudy Gay a lot. But if he's your backup center, that's not the type of center that where you can like really do something.
Didn't Favors come back? Excuse me.
I don't remember. But even
I thought they re-signed him from New Orleans in the offseason, but I could be wrong.
But like if you're going small ball, like that's more what I'm talking about. Like the small ball 5 is Rudy Gay. And that's not really like a significant answer anyway. So that's where it comes into play. They might have to make a move. A guy like Miles Turner would certainly help them. I don't know how they would be able to get Miles Turner. I don't even know who else like they could realistically get. You know who'd really that I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but Jeremy Grant is suddenly very important.
Yeah.
Like if you're talking about like a young wing guy who like could push a team over the top, Jeremy Grant on like 2 or 3 of these teams could be like a really key, like Utah, the Lakers, maybe the Clippers. Like if the Clippers, I don't know how the Clippers would get him because I actually do like BJ Boston. I didn't like him in college, but when a team with like no real future, just let him chuck around him and Terrence Mann. Fuck it. You might as well because you need a deeper bench anyway. Because for some reason you signed Luke Kennard to $64 million. But
shooting gets you paid. Shooting gets you paid.
Yeah, but no. But like no, Jaren Grant, it would solve a lot of Utah's problems. I don't really know what they would give up to get him.
Yeah,
and the thing is, like,
Detroit.
they need a bigger guard. Like, I don't remember how big Donovan Mitchell is, but you kind of need somebody else to be your guard defender.
And Conley's too small.
Right, Conley is too small, and he's not like you're not gonna put. They need like kind of like a Pat Bev type.
Right.
Someone who's just gonna like haul ass chasing Steph around the court, or hassling because we saw it in the Milwaukee series last year where you get that one wing guy to slow down like a Chris Paul, and it makes a huge difference, and they don't have that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Well, nothing. Only time's gonna tell with that, and at the end of the show, we'll talk about who should make moves at the trade deadline coming up. And obviously, that will be a huge topic over there. But the other team in the West that has been definitely interesting to notice, and it seems that this is definitely an era for this franchise in the Memphis Grizzlies, the fourth in the West right now. Ja Morant looks like he's the true number one overall pick in the draft 2 years ago. This guy who came from a small school, and I don't even know where the place was, but not coming from a Power 5 conference. Yeah, exactly. So this guy is now turning into one of the more popular players in the NBA. So much fun to watch. A real tool player. And now, like I said, for a franchise that was going nowhere in the Memphis Grizzlies, and now they're pretty legit with the additions of Steven Adams being stellar, especially on the boards. You have Desmond Bane making big moves. Really Dylan Brooks has been definitely showing his worth. I mean, this is the team that made, especially offensively, they made set the franchise record, the NBA record, scoring 152 points and, what was it, 72 point differentiate.
Oh, when they beat the Thunder that one game?
Yeah.
The Grizzlies are something else, especially offense. How about this? Are we seeing the growth in a franchise here to stay? Is it similar to what the Warriors were before they started making championship strides? You add Curry, the Clay, you had Draymond. They made the playoffs, didn't advance, and then they changed coaches and Stephen Kerr. We know what happens there. Is this like the 2020s version with the Memphis Grizzlies, or what? Do we have to wait for more things to take place?
No. They're not that. They're not the new Warriors. First, they're like, look, Ja's good, but like, there's. And I know this is going to sound weird, but I was listening to this on the Bill Simmons podcast. There's like a legitimate argument that Steph Curry is in like the LeBron era level of conversation, the LeBron like Jordan type, type of career. And that's what we're talking about with Steph. Now, Ja is very good. I think a lot of his shooting though might be fluky, and they don't also have a wing defender. Dylan Brooks kind of just checks people. And I don't mean like guards them. I mean like physically just checks them. That's the team that could also use like a Jaren Grant for like a wing guy. But Desmond Bane is very good. Jaren Jackson Jr. is kind of rounding into form. Look, they're young and exciting. Like if you that's a team that's, I don't remember which kid they got. I think they got the Stanford kid in the draft. And I think that was
the Grizzlies.
Like a solid like
Trey Murphy, the third from Virginia.
No, that was did they? Is that who they drafted? No, they had like a top 10 pick that they took. Or maybe it was the Pelicans. I don't remember who had that pick. But they're a little ahead of schedule. And the thing is, like, don't overpay pay guys. Like they like be happy where you are, let them develop. I think they've done a good job developing organically. Like they made a very smooth transition from the grit and grind to this era. And a lot of it has to do with how good Ja is. But like he can get better. Desmond Bane can definitely get better. Jaren Jackson Jr. can get better. Like they have good young guys. They've done a good job of like drafting with them. It's good to be they're probably going to make the top 4 seed. Simply now, if everyone's healthy next year, are they a top 4 seed? Absolutely not. They're probably 6 if I had to rank them. I mean, they're certainly like if everyone's healthy next year, Denver's certainly better than them. The Clippers are better than them with both of their wings. I would assume a healthy Lakers team, whatever variation of LeBron and AD, is better than them. So, I mean, this is another team that might overachieve this year. They might make it out of the first round, but to be like aware that, it's better to go organically growth than to like blow it all trying to get like Bradley Beal or something. Be aware of like, it's better like do the slow and steady. It's probably closer to like an Oklahoma City thing than it is to a, we're suddenly good overnight like the Warriors.
Okay. Do you feel similar or dissimilar, Alex? Do you have Ja fever?
I mean, I got Ja fever. I had him number 1 overall over Zion when he got drafted, just because I wasn't sure about Zion's durability and his weight issues and whatnot.
And you were right.
Yeah. No, I mean,
hey, listen, there's a really good jambalaya there. That's what happened. Like, I think if he went to like Cleveland, he would not be as fat.
He would just be depressed.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and the game's moving towards guard play, all guard play. That's definitely no secret. I think that they have a lot of ingredients that Golden State started with, good drafting prospects, a really strong front office, building for the future constantly. They have kind of a gritty, tough-nosed head coach, and I feel like they have a lot of the right building blocks for the right culture. But at a certain point, not only are they going to have to pay Ja, which is coming down the road sooner or later, but also a lot of the guys that they've drafted have been 3-and-D guys, C+ players, as much as I love Dylan Brooks and Jaren Jackson. But they're going to have to get him his co-star. And it starts with, thrusting yourself, positioning yourself as a better landing spot, a better market. And, to the credit of a lot of these free agents and these players, like they're more willing than ever to go to other markets, but there has to be some kind of sales pitch on behalf of the players and the organization to make that happen. So at a certain point, I think Ja, if he hasn't already been doing it already, he's going to have to reach out to maybe some of the, free agents in the next 2 to 3 years window and seize on this opportunity. Otherwise, they're going to be out in the first or second round recurringly.
Well, they need a number 2. Like Ja can be a number 1. I mean, Desmond Bane could possibly grow into it. I mean, the kid's I think he's still relatively young, but his shooting is stupid. And the stuff they're doing with him is a lot. Like Jaren Jackson Jr. is never going to be like the top, like Evan Mobley is going to be better than Jaren Jackson Jr. And they're like essentially built the same. That's like the thing. Like they need that number 2, but I don't think they need to go out and get it now. I think they have,
right.
And like you said, they have a lot of like solid players, so it's kind of easier to build like a little bit of a trade package around them. If you're given what the fuck is it? Brandon Clark, is that the bouncy guy they got out of Villanova a couple of years ago? Him and like a Dylan Brooks package with like maybe some picks or something to get like I get to do like a CP3 type of thing where you get that one guy who's maybe a little bit older, or maybe you get like trick Boston into getting Jaylen Brown.
I mean, you're ruling out that they can't be the next Warriors, or you just don't feel like they're currently constructed that way.
What does that mean, be the next Warriors? Are we talking about a team that went to 5 straight finals?
Well, no, I mean, they show a lot of the same foundational building blocks. Like they do well in drafting. They don't have they have a super talent point guard out of a small school. They have the right front office. They have a solid coach. Like they have a lot of the same ingredients, but they don't necessarily have that co-star yet for Ja.
I think that's more of like a Portland thing than it is Golden State. The fear is they end up like Portland, The goal would be to be more like Oklahoma City, like the big three Oklahoma City, than it is to Golden State. You're not going to be gold. They broke basketball for a while, and it took like it took the greatest shooting backcourt to be that good. Like a lot of things fell into place for them to end up as good as they were. Now they could certainly be a good team. The question is, they're going to. I mean, they don't have like the super generational. Like Ja is never going to be the top 5 player in the league. But you don't need to have the top 5 player. Like look at the Bulls. Like if you go and get like a DeMar DeRozan in like 2 years, you're still like a solid. That could make all the difference.
Ja could be top 10 within the next few years. That's the thing too, and that's good.
I don't know about top. Look, if we're talking. So, like off the top of my head, that I could probably name like 5 or 6 guys: like KD, Jokic, Curry, LeBron, Giannis, Luka, who are like over. I think he's probably like top 15. But but
here's the thing: you kind of start tapping out around 6 or 7 because LeBron's not going to be around much longer.
Right. That's why you get a couple of years. But then we're not. I didn't even say Devin Booker or Donovan, like Donovan Mitchell. Who knows? Yeah. We don't know how good some of these like look, the rookies are getting better. Like this rookie class is very good. The next one is going to be very weird. But like some guys could pop and we're not like ready for it. Like we don't know, like in 2 to 3 years we could talk about Evan Mobley being a top 10 player. Like we don't know some of or fucking what's his face, Jalen Green or Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes, I was going to say.
Yeah,
or Jalen Suggs figures it out and becomes the better rookie besides Franz Wagner. Like to just project him as a top 10 player right now, a lot of it is based on the fact that his shooting numbers kind of don't seem sustainable. Kind of like how they were before he went down. So that does also seem to be an impact on it as well.
Yes, guys shooting their shots and they're scoring, and we'll see what happens as we continue. For a team that has not been making anybody happy, they're slowly turning back into what many people said they were meant to be. And the New York Knicks, despite a great win yesterday for the first time, you had Julius Randle and RJ Barrett score 30 points each. Yet people don't seem confident in them. And as a big Knicks fan, as you know, I don't feel the same. You
feel confident or you don't feel confident?
No, I don't feel confident. I'm concerned. I think if there's any chance that this Knicks team has a chance to sneak into the playoffs, it would have to be them making a big move at the deadline. The Knicks are not looking good. But hey, if you have games like yesterday, reckon they are against a struggling Indiana team, I guess you could feel more confident, see what happens after the All-Star break. But the Knicks, do you think they are on their way to oblivion after some misses in offseason moves where Kemba Walker's out of the rotation and you have Evan Fournier not playing up to his potential? What's up with the Knicks and Mitch Robinson having major issues, injury issues again? Derrick Rose is also out. So yes, the COVID bug has hit them. The injury bug has hit them. The Knicks are fighting for survival. Do we think that they will be able to survive?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest because I've been preaching this since last season. The Knicks overachieved last year.
It looks like that's very accurate at this point, especially more prevalent now.
I thought this would happen earlier, but their defense on the numbers of on the opponent's shooting point percentage for threes last year was stupid. It was like historically bonkers, like how off it was. It was like opponents on wide open shots were missing them at like 10 percentage points higher against the Knicks for like no apparent reason, like no apparent reason. And it just never went down. But like the good news is they don't really have bad contracts. This is likely to change. And the part of the reason is they've essentially fucked up every draft prior to the RJ one. They don't have Porzingis. They wasted Frankie Smokes. I don't know if Kevin Knox has played a game this year.
Nope. He's still on the team, but also out of the rotation.
You
get the one
so
back
you're
Kentucky
looking
guy.
at. I think you have to extend RJ next year, probably.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you give him. I think if you give him 4 for 100, that's probably about right. Mitch Robinson's more of a question. You got to give him like whatever you give him has to be like incentive lanes with the stuff like that. But look, you only like there's no reason to bring Kemba back. I think the big thing they have to do is
I wish they could trade him.
Yeah, but nobody should trade for him.
Yeah.
They have to go for like De'Aaron Fox. I mean, they're definitely a team that's dumb enough to trade for Ben Simmons. Like when I say dumb enough, I mean like a team that would throw a whole bunch of shit at Ben Simmons. But I don't know what they would have that the Sixers would want. Like you're not trading Ben Simmons straight up for RJ. And then everything else they have is a big. I mean, look, Obi's I think is doing okay. I paid like
he is holding his own
to like the extent of the Knicks. But Julius Randle that contract's probably going to be a problem because that was like such an overachievement of last year, and then we saw in the playoffs that he's basically a pumpkin. So look, last year was an overachieve. At this point, you got to like figure out who are your actual rotational pieces. You chalk the Kemba thing up to a bust. Maybe you could trade Derrick Rose for a pick or something. And go after De'Aaron Fox. I think De'Aaron Fox will make a huge difference in your team. But this is more you coming back down to earth than you being doom and gloom. And look, even this Knicks team coming down to earth is better than you've had in. So this is what, like 2013, that one team that lost to the Pacers in the second round.
Yeah, with the Mello Amari, the good old days there. You're right. I think we were just how emotional we can get in this tease, and if we slowly rebuild and keep going in the right direction, at least, especially with Thibbets at the helm, I guess it'd be a better sense of acceptance. As the Garden's been revitalizing, and the Rangers are the best team in the NHL. You want the Knicks to be legit too, but this really is, the jury's still out. Let's see if they can rack up some wins as we approach the All-Star game, and then we'll reevaluate there. And I want to talk about Alex's Lakers before we talk about who needs to make moves at the deadline. Alex, where LeBron is playing on an MVP type level, that is not resulting in some wins, though they have won their last 3 games. There was a really bad skid, especially the end of December. And when, again, another team that got really hit with the COVID bug, and then Anthony Davis struggling to stay on the courts. It must be tough. And then you see LeBron walk with that everybody getting traded look. Is that what you want too? Or do you think, maybe something good is going to happen and maybe they'll keep winning? Like I said, on a 3-game winning streak, maybe they add to it. Maybe it's an 8-game or a 9-game. And then Lakers are back with that team at the beginning of the season. Everyone said it's so old, but what do you say?
Yeah. No, I mean, they have all the issues that I prognosticated at the beginning of the season they would have. They're old, they don't play defense, they turn the ball over, and they're not a very good shooting team. And all three things are true at the same time. Now, look, Anthony Davis.
Basketball right there. That's how you would get.
Yeah, that's the unholy trinity right there. Anthony Davis has not stayed healthy. He's not taking care of his body in the offseason that I hope he had wanted to. That they had wanted to and hoped for. LeBron's been on an amazing tear, but it's not sustainable. 37-7 for the season. He's just been phenomenal. He can't really do much more. And they just can't. I was so fearful. I knew that this was the wrong decision when they elected to not bring in Buddy Hield. I knew that it was a subtraction by addition when they brought in Russell Westbrook. He's just a ticking time bomb. He makes poor decisions. He has his entire career. He's never quite contributed to winning basketball, and it's bearing itself. And LeBron is pissed about it because he thought that he could change his ways. Obviously, he couldn't. I knew he couldn't. I kind of said it first, and they're going to have to limp into the playoffs. They're probably going to have to play through the play-in tournament, but they don't have assets to give up. I like some of their key role players. Like I do like Malik Monk. I do like Austin Reeves, the rookie out of Oklahoma. They do have some nice pieces, but at the end of the day, they're just guys. So they're going to have to try to get healthy. They're going to have to try to add a little cohesion, but they've played the easy stretch of their season. They have the third toughest remaining schedule of the season. So they're going to have to pull up their bootstraps.
I can say some things about this too, because like I went to, so I really like them signing Stanley Johnson. I think as like a guy who goes out there and hauls ass on defense and then will maybe hit a couple shots. I think he's like a solid pickup. I do like them signing Darren Collison as well. Apparently they did try to trade Westbrook. But again, you're right. The trading for Westbrook was a mistake. Not even just because Buddy Hield it fits better, but they could have kept Caruso or they could have kept KCP. I don't remember who was in the Buddy trade was Kuzma and Montreal. Was KCP in it or something? Either way, they could have kept Caruso. That would have, yeah. So like they could have kept some pieces, and that would have.
Caruso's been killing it. And
we played his ass off. It's all effort.
Yeah. I mean, every year LeBron has been there. The best pairing was LeBron and Caruso because he's one of those guys who just knows how to play basketball and hustles. Yep. So it was like, look, the other thing this is a ray of hope for the Lakers. Russ sucked at the beginning of last year. And then he figured it out halfway through around the All-Star break. It is possible that happens again, and certainly adding AD back will fix some of your issues. It's not a long-term solution. I guess if everything ultimately clicked, this team could potentially win a title. Just in theory of LeBron figuring it out. Like you have the talent, at least the names, whether they fit together or not. Look, the other thing is like, why would you have kept Taylor Horton Tucker over Kuzma? Like he's terrible. He's so bad. He's shooting 24% from 3-point range.
I can tell you why, because he's a clutch client. But go ahead.
But like, that's, dude.
I know. It's ridiculous.
LeBron might have like, unless he leaves, I don't know if he's winning a fifth one.
I don't think he is.
Like this is, like if you're talking about a team to surprise win a title, like this is kind of the year. Like think about who's out. Like Brooklyn's not at full health. We don't know what we're getting from Clay. There's no Kawhi and Paul George. There's no Dallas is perpetually a mess. There's no Denver. So you're basically assuming that there's two big guys you're really going to have to worry about. It's either Joel Embiid, who that team's not going to make it out, or Giannis, who, I guess in theory you could kind of handle eventually. But like, this is the most wide open it's been for having so few teams capable of winning. There's like legitimately 4 teams that can win it. It's Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Gold State, and Phoenix. Like I don't know who else you would consider would have a shot at the title. It's maybe somebody else in the East. It's Chicago possibly, but I don't think, and nobody in Chicago has ever won like anything.
Nope.
So, I mean, look, I could, in theory, they could make it. They're a solid team, and people like, oh, DeMar's actually good. It's like, yeah. He didn't fit in San Antonio, but he was doing the point forward thing and playing that small ball floor and leading the league at the clutch stuff. Like, so it's not like this is news to me. I've been watching him do it for like the last 3 years. So look, there's a ray of hope in that West figures it out in the second half as he has done the last couple of years. But like, I don't know who made the decision to do this trade, but it was a mistake because there's like no way to move him either. Like you're not gonna trade him back to Houston. Houston's not
too much of a cap hit. You gotta match assets, and they can't do it.
And who realistically is going to trade for it? Like the only team that, like, even if we're not even talking about teams like, let's pretend the cap thing isn't an issue. Like who needs a point guard? The Knicks? Like you think the Knicks are going to trade for Russ?
I'm about
to convince maybe the Pelicans to trade for us, maybe get like Brandon Ingram back and like you know
what the Knicks trying to take Russell Westbrook off our hands. It's kind of like a really, really hot car getting into a car accident. It's like, ooh, I got the hood. It's like it went through hell and back, and it's like, oh well, we got still this nice part. Yeah, it's not working with Westbrook.
Who says no first? Westbrook for some combination of R.J. Barrett, Evan Fournier, and like Nerlens Noel. Who says no? If I'm the Lakers picking up that call, you think the Knicks hang up, or if the Knicks call the Lakers, did they hang up? Like, who hangs up in that situation?
Well, the Knicks hang up, because if they really want any chance of growing into a legitimate franchise, then you don't give up those players, especially RJ. At least that's how I would handle it. And then let Russ be Russ. But speaking of trades and the trade deadline, the last thing we'll talk about is who needs to make these moves. We started a little bit talking about maybe if the Lakers could somehow trade Russell Westbrook, that would be ideal, but that likely isn't going to happen. But whether you are maybe the Heat or maybe the Cavs who keep winning, or if you want to be, or maybe the Mavs, or, which teams do you think can realistically make a deal to revitalize their season? And I talked about how much I think the Knicks, that's the difference of them making a run this season and sneaking into the playoffs, is making a crucial deal, especially at the point guard position. But who else or what other ideas are out there, do you guys think, in terms of who needs to make deals coming into this deadline, which is about a month away?
I got a big one. San Antonio does a 4-teamer with Dallas, Indiana, and Philly, where Dallas ends up with Ben Simmons and Jakob Poeltl. San Antonio ends up with Miles Turner, and then the other two teams figure it out. They get like Derek White, and like Derek White goes to like whichever team wants Derek White. You can't have and then Lonnie Walker goes to one of those teams. Look, Dallas figuring out how to get Ben Simmons, or Indiana gets Porzingis. I think Indiana would ultimately end up with Porzingis, and then Derek White ends up in Philly, and then that's kind of how you shuffle all of that. But Porzingis, tried and trade Porzingis to get Ben Simmons. You have to pull a third team in. But Dallas getting Porzingis or Ben Simmons would be a big one for them. I think the biggest trade piece is going to be Jaren Grant
from Detroit.
Yeah, unless Ben Simmons moves or Dame decides that he's done with playing with CJ. And even then, I don't know like how many teams CJ moves the needle for. Jaren Grant's going to be the biggest name probably moved if it's not Ben. Kevin Love might actually be moved. I don't think the Cavs need to make a move. Like, they're still super young, and their team works for some incredibly stupid reason.
Yeah, right. And Kevin Love's had some games where he was the number one scorer for the team. He could definitely be that veteran presence for some team.
Yeah, he can still contribute.
Yeah, there's like maybe we see this. Like, I don't, other than like the CJ Kevin Love, I don't really see them like changing that much. Like, Kevin Love probably will be moved. Ben Simmons is probably going to be moved. I would like, if I was a team in looking for like a low cost center, I would look for Jakob Poeltl. I think he's a guy who would help a lot of teams. Like, he's a really solid big man who he's averaging like multiple assists a game. He's a solid. And then Derek White is a guy who, look, he's not great. He isn't. I think if you he was good that one year in the bubble where he yammed all over Jokic. We took the Nuggets to 7. And then he's been bad ever since. Like, we kind of need him because our other ball handlers really like Devin Vassal's not a point guard. Josh Primo's like 12. Trey Jones is like a backup, like just like his brother. So like, and DeJounte Murray is really fucking good. Like, he's the best defensive point guard in the league. He's either number 1 or number 2 in rebounding point guards. Still can't really shoot, but he'll figure it out. But that's a team that has something like guys that can be moved. I think Lonnie Walker probably could be moved, but I think the big pieces are whatever happens in Indiana. Like, if I'm looking at Indiana, I'm trying to get me Miles Turner. Like, every team needs a Miles Turner.
Oh yeah.
Except honestly the Lakers, because you kind of have a better version in AD.
Well, yeah.
But everyone else needs a Miles Turner. I don't know how else you get. Like, that's where I'm calling. Or I could kind of see them like stealth dealing Levert, but I don't really know how much value he has. Like, I don't know how much he contributes to making you winning.
Mhm.
Or like a Malcolm Brogdon. Like if the Knicks got Malcolm Brogdon, that would be a really big plus. Like, that's an under the radar name that like if Dallas got out Malcolm Brogdon, they would be pretty happy. Like, he's like whatever the best version of Jalen Brunson could be. Like, he's a very good point guard, and he's what Spencer Dinwiddie thinks he is. And honestly, Washington might have some pieces too, because they got some. They're a little clogged up.
You think they would trade, even though they reckon they were on top of the East, that like they were when we first met.
That complete fluke.
Yeah, they're only a game above 500 at this point in the 7th spot. Really bad away record as I'm looking at right here, but I guess so. If you really wanted to, they are pretty
reason for them to make a trade. I don't think Rui's played a game.
Not yet.
So like they have like some like for a team that's drafted mostly in the back half of the lottery the last couple of years, they have some nice pieces. Like Denny's turned into a good defender, and Rui's actually kind of good. But like they're not a bad, like they still have room to grow. They're still like relatively young. I don't think Thomas Bryant's played a single game yet, so I think their point guard is their center has been Montrezl Harrell, and David Bertans is only good at shooting like once every 3 games. So that contract sucks. I wonder who says no to this trade. David Bertans for Joe Harris.
I think that would be beneficial for both sides, especially
they make essentially the same amount of money.
Yeah, and they both contribute to their teams in different ways.
No, it's they're essentially the exact same player. The difference is Joe Harris is really short in comparison. But Bertans doesn't. He can't guard anybody, and he can't rebound. But we've never seen him shit himself in the playoffs. So that's the real question. Do you want to pay Bertans versus Joe Harris?
Yeah.
Sign me up. Alex, what do you think? Who needs to make moves to give their teams a chance?
Well, I mean, there's clear teams that are fringe contenders that would definitely benefit from players, but there's not a lot of open, there's not a lot of guys in the open market. Like Jeremy Grant would definitely be the one that everybody should be penning in. The Indiana situation is very difficult because they may want to blow it up, and Miles Turner will be back, would be on the market. I think Karis LeVert would be too, right?
I think they're looking to move everybody. Right. The only piece that they probably aren't moving is their rookie.
It's the bonus.
No, I think it's the rookie. I don't think Rick Carlson likes the bonus.
I think he likes the bonus.
Well, I mean, his numbers aren't anywhere near the same as they were last year. They've changed his usage ratio.
They've regressed. Yeah, but they've had injury. But either way, I mean, yeah, they're probably going to clear the clean house. So I think everybody's going to be showing up to that yard sale. I mean, even their rookie in theory, like, could be traded pretty easily because he's 24. He's a rookie, but he's an older rookie. So right.
I think if somebody offered them like if Cleveland said, "Hey, we're going to give you a first rounder for him," I think they'd take that trade. Or if the Pelicans said, "Hey, we'll give you one of the Lakers first rounders for him," maybe they'd take that trade. I don't think there's anybody on the Pacers team that's considered untouchable. I think the real issue with that team is they're not going to bottom out. Their ownership does not want to bottom out.
Yeah, and I think
you don't bring in Rick Carlson to bottom out.
Yeah, Rick Carlisle's I know. Yeah, and you got to kind of immediately rule out a lot of the teams in the Eastern Conference if they are going to part ways with a lot of their players from the roster. I think the Lakers and the Nuggets are probably the two teams that I would expect to make a move, just because that roster for Denver is basically on life support. Everybody's out. Jokic has been unbelievable, but he's been having no help. And then, the Lakers, just for the mere fact that you got 1 or 2 years left out of LeBron, you want to get every ounce of juice you can get left. Try to win another chip. I think the Portland experiment is pretty much over. I feel bad for Chauncey because he just got there 5 minutes ago. I would have liked to have a full year, unintended with Dame, but I think that ship has sailed already. I think he's looking elsewhere. So I would definitely exclude them. But I think it's really Denver and the Lakers had the most to gain.
I don't think Denver's making a move. I think the biggest move is going to be Ben Simmons to Sacramento. Like, we can agree that's like the most likely trade destination for him, because I don't think the Timberwolves are going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ruling out that a lot of these teams that are like right around the fringe of the playoffs could make moves, but just in terms of teams that could make that jump to contender, I think it's between LA and Denver, just in that conversation.
Oh, I don't think Denver makes that jump. I think the biggest team that makes a jump is if Utah gets Jaren Grant, or they figure out how to get a wing. You know, another team that might actually make a move is Atlanta, because they got a lot of young guys, and they're kind of overlapping into the same position. Then at some point you're gonna have to pay them all. So maybe you package like the Jalen Johnson, or you package the Cam Reddish, or the DeAndre. Like you have like 6 guys who play like the same exact position, that like 3-4 wing. And you can't pay them all. Like, you can't pay Bogdanovich, Gallo, Reddish, Hunter, and Jalen Johnson at some point. Like, that's right. So that may be a team a couple of years down the line that maybe, you know, somebody sneaks up. I still think Cam Reddish is going to be really good.
I think so too.
There's also like Houston has some pieces. You know, there's, other than like their rookies, I think anyone else on that team is tradable. I think Christian Wood is tradable. I think Eric Gordon's tradable. John Wall's probably getting bought out, like for reals. And then I don't even like, nobody's paying attention to Toronto, but like Siakam could be tradable. I don't know who wants it. I don't know who gets. I like that. That's a piece. And then I think Goran Dragic is still on that team. He's probably getting bought out. Mm-hmm. So there are pieces that are like bouncing around. But they're, you know, it's kind of like seeing, I think a lot of teams are going to be in like a wait year. I don't think Denver makes a move because their real issue is we're just not healthy. Like, there's no point in pushing our future chips into the pile when we're not going to win a title anyway. Like, let's try to develop like Bol. Let's develop Bones. Let's develop, I don't even fucking know who else is on that roster. Mm-hmm. It's Jokic and like 4 guys off the street every night, and Eric Gordon occasionally. So I don't see them really making a move because it's not really worth it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to check in a few weeks to see where these deals, if and when are they going to happen. I just want to thank you guys again, David Bach and Alex Ranniello. Thank you so much for doing the amazing things you guys do. Any final words before we sign off?
We doing plugs?
Yeah. What do you got to say?
Yeah. All right. I do Fresh Faces New Ideas. When I'm not doing this, I do politics talk. We generally do shows at 5 p.m. EST to 7 p.m. That you can find me at twitch.tv/Fresh Faces New Ideas. You can find me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. If you go there, it has a link to everything that I do. I'm generally pissing off conservatives on Twitter. It's a lot of fun. And then I'm yelling at stupid people on Twitch. So if you want to join that, definitely come in to hang out.
We definitely support that the whole way, and the yelling at the dumb people. And what about you, Alex?
Man, that's tough to follow. Oh boy. I got a show coming up in the spring with my Going Places Art Collective. We're going to be in Hartford at the local art tattoo studio on New Park Avenue. We're looking for submissions. If you know any artists, creative people, submit. Check out Going Places Art Collective on Instagram and submit now.
All right. Excellent. Well, Alex and Bach, pleasure as always. We'll check in a few weeks and we'll see if these deals are going to be made or there's some complete surprises. Until then, I appreciate the both of you, and you guys have a great night. Alex Ranniello and David Bach, thanks again. See you later.
Take care, boys.